Ukraine's surprise attack on Russia boosts Putin. Ukrainian military launched a surprising counteroffensive into Russia this week to target a border territory after a year and a half of defensiveness. The Kursk region bordering Ukraine's northeastern Sumy province is under emergency after the Ukrainian strike, Russia's first foreign attack since World War II. On the fourth day of battle, Ukrainian troops and armored vehicles have advanced at least 20 kilometers and are capturing scores of Russian border guards, conquering several villages, and surrounding Sudza, where fighting continues. Putin labeled the bombing a major provocation, raising concerns about a Kremlin escalation in the fight against Ukraine and with the U.S., Kyiv's main supporter. According to Globsec Vice President for Policy and Programming Elena Kudsko, Ukraine has shifted the war narrative by breaching into Russia, even though the offensive's direction is unknown. Ukrainians are working to rewrite the war narrative. Before Kursk, the war was predictable and seemingly stuck on many sides, she claimed. Ukraine has shown that it can make this war unpredictable and surprise Russia by launching this offensive. High-speed Ukrainian moves surprised Russia in the 2022 Kharkiv and Kherson counteroffensives, like the Kursk offensive. U.S. authorities back Ukraine's attack. On Thursday, Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh told reporters Kursk was consistent with Washington's doctrine to protect against Russian border attacks and not a war escalation. She claimed this is an escalatory. Ukraine is doing everything it needed to win on the battlefield. A protracted war of attrition has benefited a bigger Russia as Kyiv has fought Russian attacks across the 600-mile front line for months. Even after the Kursk onslaught, Russian forces are attacking their main targets in northeastern Kharkiv, which borders Sumy, and eastern Donetsk. Russian troops are slowly advancing near vital Donetsk cities like Chasiv Yar. Securing that city would give Moscow the upper hand and allow a push into Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, which Russia has long sought to capture in Donetsk. Russia's Kharkiv offensive is also ongoing, although its troops have yet to conquer Vovchansk, which would lead to Kharkiv, and look to be slowing down. Federico Borsari, a transatlantic defense and security scholar at the Center for European Policy Analysis, said Ukraine's incursion has pressured Russia to divert troops and defend its borders. The Russians decide how to proceed with this Kursk offensive, he said. I think the Russians will strive to beat the pressure, even if it means giving Ukraine other options. He noted that it was unclear whether the attack would have a major impact on the front lines, where Ukraine is struggling to defend against Russian attacks with dwindling troops. $1 billion in American guns and equipment are suddenly flooding the battlefield after months of U.S. aid delays crippled Ukraine's defenses. This week, Ukraine received a small batch of F-16s to protect the skies. High-speed maneuver warfare requires air superiority, but Kursk's employment of F-16s is unclear. Aid has not solved Ukraine's defensive issues. Ukraine has dropped its conscription age from 27 to 25, allowing it to call up more troops, but it won't alleviate its personnel crisis for months. According to European Council on Foreign Relations Policy fellow Raphael Loss, the Kursk offensive may be an attempt to overcome those issues. Manpower is Ukraine's biggest issue, he said. News of a daring maneuver may encourage Ukrainian volunteers to sign up. It may improve the tone of volunteering discussions, but I'm not convinced it will affect risk calculus. High-ranking despite cryptic warnings from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his aides, Ukrainian officials have not acknowledged the Kursk attack. War is war, with its own rules, where the aggressor inevitably reaps proportional outcomes, Zelensky's top advisor Mikhailo Podolyak wrote on X. Ukraine appears to be targeting Sudza and Koronevsky to the west. However, troops appear to be roaming the region, forcing Russia to respond in numerous ways. Ukraine must decide what to do with its Russian territory and whether it distracts from frontline defense. The Hoover Institution's Tomasz Bluziewicz predicts that Ukraine would retreat from Kursk after pushing Russia to transfer multiple troops to exploit frontline positions. Now they must move. Russians are horrible at this. Logistics is their weakness, he claimed. It was a superb move by Ukraine. Their achievement in compelling Russia to transfer its forces and showing Russia's defenselessness in other places is tremendous. The prestige hit to Putin is huge. Russia has reinforced Kursk and promised to defeat Ukrainian forces. Major General Abdialadinov, Russia's deputy head of the main military political directorate, told TASS that the situation is hard, but it is not critical in Kursk and that Ukraine will fall on the front lines. Unstoppable enemy, he said. I am confident that the enemy will have nothing to counter us after we destroy these resources. Ukraine may attack critical Russian resources including equipment and attack sites rather than hold territory. Capturing prisoners and territory can aid discussions and prisoner swaps. Ukrainian army took a Kursk gas metering station and threatened a Russian nuclear reactor. Brock Biermann, visiting senior scholar at the German Marshall Fund, said the offensive targeted a Russian territory with strategic assets Ukraine can demolish and remove as a threat. He said it's a technique to scatter the front lines and push Russia to reallocate resources to secure its assets. Now they're going to have to think about that allocation, not only in that region but along a very long border, he said. The Kursk offensive has exposed Russians to war's direct effects. Ukraine had only occasionally attacked Russian oil installations or strategic assets with drones before the attack. They have started hitting border sites with American-made weapons, including long-range artillery, in recent months. However, Kursk Russians have been displaced and several dead. Russian forces lost almost 1,000 soldiers in May and June, according to the UK Ministry of Defence. Some Russians condemn the administration and military for not anticipating or protecting against the Kursk attack. Former Kremlin press officer and Russian military blogger Rybar blamed Moscow for Ukraine accumulating forces for months. For 2 months, useless upper headquarters received all the information. Rybar wrote on Telegram that he had enough time to decide. The Ukrainian formations that penetrated Sudza and Kornivo paid the price. Putin tightly controls his country and crushes dissent. However, the Kursk attacks threaten his wartime narrative. Kudsko of the Globsek think tank said she didn't foresee major domestic changes in Russia but that it would put pressure on the Kremlin. There will be increased population dissatisfaction against the Kremlin and government, she stated. Even those who favor the war in theory would not like its effects on their lives.